Alright, today we are talking about elimination. So you've already learned how to solve systems of equations by graphing and substitution. Elimination is just a third method. It's a little bit different. Sometimes it'll be an easier way to use. Sometimes it will be a harder way to use. It's really just whatever your preference is in solving these systems. So, elimination method. It's a method for solving systems of equations. And it's done by adding or subtracting to eliminate a variable. Ooh, did I? No, I spelled that right. So a method for solving systems of equations by adding or subtracting to eliminate a variable. So anytime we go about this, we're going to follow 4-ish steps. The reason I say 4-ish is because if you look at step 1, we say to make sure that the equations are lined up. If they're not lined up, then we have to take another step to line those equations up. But anyway, so step 1, we're going to make sure the equations are lined up. If they're not lined up, we're going to line them up. Step 2, we're going to add or subtract the equations to eliminate the variable with common coefficients. So we're going to add or subtract the equations to eliminate the variable with common coefficients. And just as a quick refresher, we remember that coefficients are that number that comes before. Let's just take a spelling class here. So the coefficients are the numbers that come before variable. Case in point, so in this first equation, y equals 3x plus 4, the 3 would be a coefficient. There's no coefficient before the y, but we could put a 1 there and say the coefficient is 1. Step 3, we have to solve for the remaining variable. So we solve for the remaining variable. Step 4 is to substitute your answer into the original equation and solve for the other variable. So we're going to substitute your answer into the original equation, and then we are going to solve for the remaining variable. Okay, so if I was taking notes on my own, I would make sure I write these 4 steps, and then I would also put a couple of these examples that we're about to do. So, example 1, we have 2 equations that are in y equals mx plus b form. Typically, when we're doing elimination, we have them in standard form. However, if they are in y equals mx plus b form, that is just as well for us. So, first things first, we're going to be, first things first, we want to make sure these are lined up. So I'm going to make an addition or subtraction problem, but we have to make sure these are lined up. In my first column, we have y's. In my second column, we have x's. In my third column, we have our constants or our regular numbers, if you will. So these equations are all perfectly lined up. Now, our next step is we have to decide if we're going to add or subtract. So, the way we do this is if we have 2 variables that are exactly the same, we're going to subtract. If we have 2 variables that have the same coefficient, but one is positive and one is negative, then we will add. So in this case, if we look at our y's, then we have 2 variables that are the same. So I'm going to say we subtract because that will get rid of that y variable. So we have our equations lined up. We've decided we're going to subtract. We're subtracting the y's, or we chose subtraction because of the y variables, because we know they will eliminate each other. So let's go through and do our 3 subtraction problems. y minus y would be 0 or nothing. Copy down our equal sign. 3x minus 1x would be 2x. 4 minus negative 2 is going to be 6. So now we're left with 0 equals 2x plus 6. Now we'll want to solve that, so I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and I will be left with negative 6 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I know x equals negative 3. So now that I know x equals negative 3, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take that value and I'm going to plug it into either of these first two equations up top. So personally, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in this second equation because I don't have to do as much multiplication. You could throw it in either one though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this equation down. Y equals x minus 2. Now I'm going to substitute in my x value. Y equals negative 3 minus 2. So y equals negative 3 minus 2 would be negative 5. So now we have both our x and y values. Now all we have to do is write them as a ordered pair. So for me to write this as an ordered pair, my x value is negative 3 and my y value is negative 5. And that would be my final answer. Okay, so let's look at one that is in standard form. And let's look at number 3. So in this case, we have to check, make sure these are lined up. We have our x's, our y's, and our constants all in a row. So we are good. We're all lined up. Now, next step, we have to decide if we are going to add or subtract. I see that my x's have the same coefficient. They both have a coefficient of 3, and they both have a coefficient of positive 3. Therefore, I'm going to want to subtract these as well. So subtract these. Let's go ahead and line this up. So 3x minus 3x is going to be 0. Copy down my minus sign. Negative 10y minus negative 9y would be negative y. Negative 10 minus negative. Yes, so negative y. Sorry. So negative y, and then I copy down my equal sign. 14 minus 15 is going to be negative 1. So I have 0 minus y equals negative 1. Now this 0 doesn't really matter, so I really have negative y equals negative 1. So what I could do is I'm going to multiply by negative 1 on both sides to get myself y equals 1. So now I have my y value. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to plug this back into one of my top equations. I'll just plug it into the first one this time since we plugged it into the second one last time. We're all about fairness here. So copy down my equation, 3x minus 10y equals 14. Now I'm going to substitute in my y value. So 3x minus 10 times 1 equals 14. So 3x minus 10 equals 14 plus 10 to both sides. We're left with 3x equals 24. We're going to want to divide by 3 on both sides, keep the equation balanced and happy, and we're left with x equals 8. Delightful. So now we have both our x and our y values, so we just need to write them as a ordered pair. 8, 1. That would be our final answer. Now, if you wanted to double check your final answer, what you could do is you could take your x and y values. So we have our x value of 8 and our y value of 1. And you could plug those both into the second equation and see if it works out as well. So if I plug both of these back into the second equation, I would have 3 times my x value, which is 8, minus 9 times my y value, which is 1, is going to equal 15. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 9 equals 15. 24 minus 9 is 15. 15 does equal 15, so this checks out as good to go. So you could always double check this if you wanted, and that's how you would do it. Let us know if you have any questions. If you want to see more examples, let us know as well. We're more than happy to give more examples.